This show is produced by the Harwood Podcast Network.
Hi, I'm Cindy Harris, and we love making this show available to you free of charge. If you'd like to help us keep it that way, make a contribution to our Karma Jar or become a show sponsor. To learn more, visit our website. Today I've baked a delicious jelly roll cake. A jelly roll is a thin sponge cake that you roll up and fill with jam. It's wonderful to serve for dessert after dinner or with tea in the afternoon. An important part of making a jelly roll is the pan you use and how you get it ready for the oven. This is a 10 by 15 rimmed baking sheet. This is what I use whenever I roast vegetables or things like that in the oven. I'm going to be using that, and I'm taking some baking spray and I'm going to spray the sides and the bottom of the pan. Then I have a piece of parchment, and I'm going to put that in the bottom as well. I'm going to press that down, and then I'm going to do a spritz on top of that. The reason I'm going to so much trouble to prepare this pan is because I want this cake to just fly out of it once it's baked. The next step is to get our flour ready. Now for this cake, I do like to use cake flour. Now I know that's tricky to get in some parts of the world, so here's how you can make it at home. I'm going to be needing 1 cup of cake flour for this recipe. What you can do then is just take 2/3 of a cup of regular flour and 1/3 of a cup of cornstarch, and you can mix it together, and that will give you 1 cup of cake flour, and that's what I've got here. I'm going to dip and level that off. As you know, I don't usually sift flour, but for this recipe I do like to do it. So I have a medium-sized bowl with my little colander, and I'm going to put my 1 cup of cake flour in here, and I'm just going to sift that out. Now if you're making your own, this will be a great thing to do because many times cornstarch has lumps in it. This way you'll have a nice, smooth, light flour that we add to our eggs when it's time. And you can see sometimes there are little balls of flour at the end. I'm just going to push that through with a knife. Now to my cake flour, I'm going to add 1 teaspoon of baking powder and 1/4 teaspoon of salt. Then I'm going to use my little whisk and whisk that together real well. I have to make sure that that leavening and the salt is mixed throughout that cake flour. And then I'm just going to set that aside. Next, we're going to get our eggs whipped up. In my mixer, I'm going to actually be using my whisk attachment. I'm going to put that on. If you're using a hand mixer, then that will be just fine. And then I've got 3 eggs, and I'm going to crack them each individually. The reason I do that is I want to make sure that there's no shell, and in case there were a bad egg, I wouldn't want to add it to the bowl. So I'm going to do that with all 3 eggs. And then I'm going to measure out 1 cup of sugar, and I'm going to put that in with my eggs, and I'm going to put this on a medium speed, and I'm going to let this beat up for 5 minutes. Now after 5 minutes, the eggs are going to look really light and lemon colored, which is just what we want. So I'm going to take it from a medium speed down to a low speed, and I've got 1/3 of a cup of milk, and you can use any kind of milk that you have on hand. I'm going to pour that in, along with 2 teaspoons of vanilla. I want to make sure that's nicely mixed in, and then I will take my dry ingredients and I'm going to slowly add that in, just sprinkling a bit at a time. Then I'll pop this up to a medium speed, and once I see that the flour is totally mixed in, I'll take it off the mixer. I'm going to take a large rubber spatula and just give that a final mix down. I don't want to see any dry ingredients in this cake batter. Now I'm going to take and pour it right into my pan. And I'll take my spatula and I'll spread that out. We are going to want to get it to all of the corners and the sides. And then I'm going to push any of that extra batter off with my finger. And then I'm just going to give this a little wrap on the counter that kind of breaks up any extra air bubbles that might be there. Now I've preheated the oven to 400 degrees. Because this cake is so thin, it doesn't take very long in the oven, only about 8 minutes. Now while the cake is baking, we need to get a clean tea towel and we need to spread that on the counter. As soon as this cake comes out, we're going to pop it out onto this. And onto the tea towel, I've got some powdered sugar. I'm going to put that back in my sifter, and I'm going to generously sift powdered sugar all over the top of this tea towel. Now after 8 minutes, you can see that the cake is starting to get some nice golden brownness on the edges, and when I touch it lightly in the middle, it springs back. What's super important about this cake is we don't want to over bake it. Now I'm just going to take a knife, I'm going to run it right along the edge just to make sure that it will lift out easily. And then I'm going to take it and pop it right out onto my tea towel. Perfect. And now I'm going to peel off the parchment paper. And you just want to carefully do that. But because we've sprayed it and double sprayed it, it should come off fine. Now on this corner here, it's kind of getting a little sticky. I'm just going to pull that with my knife. But do it slowly. Give the cake a chance to release. Nice. Now the next thing we want to do is we do want to trim off these hardened edges. So I'm just going to take a knife that is non-serrated and I'm carefully just going to slice those edges off. These are a little crispy. They taste really good, so save them to the side. But we don't want that crunchy edge on our jelly roll. Okay, so now that the edges are off, we need to roll the cake up. So I'm going to start on the short end here. I'm going to put the towel up and I'm going to start rolling it up. The towel is going to be rolled up with the cake, but that's okay. And I'll take it and I'll set it on a wire rack. And then I'm going to set the timer for just 10 minutes to let that cool down. Now while the cake is cooling, I'm going to get the jam ready. Now you can use any kind of jam you would like. I'm actually using a cherry jam today. I'm going to measure out about a cup of it. And then with a spoon, I'm going to stir this up. And all I'm really doing is just kind of loosening it up just a little bit. Now this cherry jam actually has some pieces of cherry in it, so that should be really good. But you can use any kind of jam you want, strawberry, apricot, whatever you've got on hand. And as you see, just by stirring this up, it kind of makes it a little easier to spread. Now it's been 10 minutes. I'm going to take and I'm going to unroll my cake. Do it nice and carefully, just like this. Perfect. And now I'm going to take the jam and I'm going to just put it all right in the center. And then I'll take and I'll move it all the way out to the edges of the cake. Now I'm finding with this cherry jam, because there are such big pieces of fruit in it, I would like a little bit more jam, so I've just taken a bit more out of my jar. This part is pretty flexible. You can really use as much as you'd like. But you do want to cover the entire surface of the cake with jam. Now we're going to roll it back up. So I'm going to start at this end again, but this time no towel. And I'm just going to carefully pull the towel down. That's why we put the powdered sugar on, so that the cake wouldn't stick too much to the towel. Just carefully pull that. And you can see the cake is so great. It's not cracking or anything. That's because we didn't overbake it. And there it is. I'm just going to place it right on a plate. And when you do place it on the plate, do place it with the seam side down, just like that. And right before you serve the cake, just take a little bit more powdered sugar, sprinkle that on top. And when you are ready to serve your cake, I get a serrated knife to help cut through that delicate cake. And there we have this lovely slice of jelly roll cake. Well, as you can see, this jelly roll cake comes together with ingredients you always have in your kitchen, so why not give it a try at home? When you are ready to, go to our website and go to the Sweet World show notes, and I'll have the recipe there for you. And as always, if you have any questions or any ideas for me, please send me an email. I'll see you next time.